Welcome to the Two Guys in a Cooler channel. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to be making summer sausage. We've had a lot of requests for summer sausage, and so I'm going to take you through step by step of how I like to make it. And there's a lot of different ways you can make summer sausage, but we're going to be using the traditional fermented route to give us that nice sourly product. So let's make it happen. First thing we're going to do is process our meats. I'm using beef and pork, but you could use venison, buffalo, elk, whatever you got. And I want to make sure my meat is relatively chilled, and I also want to cut it into small chunks. Now, the pieces that I'm using are lean cuts. This is lean pork, and that was lean beef, and so I'm going to supplement with back fat. If you happen to be using a fattier cut, you don't need to add back fat at this step, but I'm going to post the recipe in the description box below. Once we get that up and running, it's time to grind our meat. We're going to grind our meat on about a 5mm plate. Make sure that your meat is partially frozen and your equipment is cold. This is going to keep your fat from smearing. It's just going to lead to an overall better product. When you're done grinding, put your meat back in the freezer while we go through the rest of the steps. The next step, this is going to be done about 30 minutes before you mix, is adding the starter culture. So we want to make sure that we wake up the starter culture, we rehydrate it, and in this case, we're using Back to Firm FRM 52. If you want to see a little more about Back to Firm FRM 52, click that link, top right-hand corner. I'll tell you all about it. And all we're going to do is we're going to add basically a half a teaspoon for every 10 pounds of meat in about a half a cup of water, and we're going to set it to the side. When I'm done with my culture, I'm going to go ahead and put it in a vacuum seal bag and stick it back in the freezer. While that's waking up, I'm going to get my seasonings ready, which I've done off camera, and then I'm also going to rehydrate my casings. I'm using 76mm casings from the sausage maker. These are great. They're synthetic casings. They're about 3 inches in diameter, give you a nice meaty summer sausage, and we're going to let those rehydrate for about 15 to 20 minutes. So my seasonings are done. My starter culture is waking up. My casings are rehydrating. Let's just take a look at the fermentation chamber. The starter culture that we're using, FRM 52, ferments between 75 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've got two controllers, one that controls the temperature, one that controls the humidity. This one is set for 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and that simply turns on and off a light bulb that I've got inside of this box that raises the heat. This blue one is to control the humidity. I've got it set at 90%. Because I want high humidity during the fermentation. So let me just open up the box, and the box can be anything. It could be wooden, it could be an ice chest. It doesn't matter. You can see that my light is an incandescent 100 watt, generates a little bit of heat, and it's just enough heat to raise the temperature to right where I want it. Right behind it, I've got a humidifier, and that keeps the humidity nice and high during the process. All right, so let's get the meat out of the freezer. And I'm going to just make sure that my temperature is below 37 degrees. Realistically, anything between like 33 and 36 is fine. And that's where I'm at right now. So I could probably let it go another 15-20 minutes, but it's not necessary. So let's go ahead and mix our meat. And the first thing that we're going to add to our meat while it's mixing is our seasonings. This is critically important. You want to make sure that your salt and your pepper and whatever spices that you have gets well incorporated into your chilled meat during this first particular stage. As soon as you have that well mixed, you're going to go ahead and add your starter culture. Now, this particular starter culture is designed to lower the pH of your meat relatively quickly. Now, this is not only going to give you a distinctively tangy quality, but it's also going to enhance the color. It's going to enhance the smell. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure that your starter culture is well mixed into your meat. And as soon as your meat is incredibly tacky, very sticky, your mince should stick to your hands when you grab a little handful of it, you can go ahead and move on to the step of stuffing. Now, there's nothing complicated about this step. You just want to make sure that you stuff your hopper as tight as you can, minimizing the amount of air pockets. You don't really want air pockets inside your summer sausage, although if you do happen to get some, we can alleviate that here in a minute with a sausage pricker. Now that our casing is on, all we need to do is get our sausage stuffer ready, and it's time to stuff some sausages. As soon as our summer sausage has been stuffed, we're just going to go ahead and prick it with a sausage pricker, making sure we don't have any air pockets, giving it a chance to breathe a little bit, and then we're going to place it in our fermentation chamber. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate the fermentation chamber. It can literally be your oven with a light on and a tray of water. Just as long as you keep the right temperature, you're totally fine. If you ferment on the low end, it's going to take a little longer. If you ferment on the high end, like 95 or 100, it's going to ferment quite quickly. The more dextrose that you add in your recipe, the more food you're giving your bacteria, the more lactic acid they're going to produce, the lower your pH is going to be. So you can control the pH drop by limiting the amount of food you give the bacteria, i.e. limiting the dextrose. So there's a little bit of mince that was left over from my tube. We're going to go ahead and let that ferment, and I want to think it was about 30 hours later. And look at the color. You can immediately see the color has changed. The smell is absolutely intoxicating. If you've ever smelt fermented sausages, then you'll know what I'm talking about, and hopefully you'll get a chance to try this recipe. But what you're looking at is a result of the biological activity that's happened over the last 30 hours. And there's 3 telltale signs that are going to let you know your product is ready to move on to the next step. The first is the texture. Your texture is going to be completely different. It's no longer going to feel like, the ground mincemeat that you started with. The odor is definitely improved, and the color is definitely magnified. It should be nice and rosy, just like that right there. I like to have a relatively tangy summer sausage, so when I test my pH, I like to have it around 4.5 to 4.6. And as you can see, I'm at 4.53. You can bring it all the way up to 4.8 if you want a very subtle, tangy quality, and that'll be okay too. Anything under 4.8 and you're good to move on to the next step, which is cooking your summer sausage. So all we're going to do to cook our summer sausage, because it's now properly fermented, we have a nice low pH, we're going to go ahead and put it back in our smoker, because we're going to smoke this for about 10 to 12 hours. I'm going to put a tray of water in the bottom of my smoker to keep the humidity high and to deflect some of the heat. We're also going to be setting up our signals unit so that we can monitor a few different channels inside of our smoker so that everything cooks evenly. And this thing is great because I can monitor it from my smartphone, but anything that you have to check the temperature of your summer sausage is absolutely critical. You don't want to overcook it. Finally, we're going to get our external smoker ready because I like to add some cold smoke while it's heating up. And this particular smoker allows me to really control the amount of smoke that comes into the chamber. So once we have all of that set up, we're going to smoke our summer sausage for roughly about 10 hours. Relatively heavy smoke, and we're going to stair-step the temperature. So we're going to start at like 120. We're going to eventually get up to about 170 or 180. I'll put my stair-step process in the description box below, but the idea is to get there as slow as you can so that you don't melt the fat, you get a lot of smoke penetration, and then it cooks evenly. Once our summer sausage has reached an internal temperature of about 150 degrees, you can go 150 to 155. You want to put it in some ice cold water to immediately cool it down. And at this point, you can just go ahead and let it bloom for a couple hours at room temperature. And once it's finished blooming, now this is where we're going to take it to the next level when it comes to flavor. We're going to put this inside of a controlled refrigerator for about 2 weeks. This is going to hang there as the flavor really begins to develop. Now, this is what sets apart a good summer sausage from an exceptional summer sausage. The temperature inside this fridge is 55 degrees, and the humidity is set at about 85, and I have a controller for both of those. At the bottom of the fridge, there's a humidifier. If you happen to have a cold garage, that's 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you can just hang your summer sausage right in there. That would work perfectly. You just want to make sure you've got a nice high humid area so that it doesn't dry out too fast. After 2.5 weeks, so I'll let mine sit in there about 20 days. As you can see, some of my other salamis, I've got sopressata, there's my culatello, I've got andouille in the back. Notice that sausage with the netting around it. If anyone can guess what that special project is, I've got an Amazon gift card with your name on it. First correct answer gets the gift card, and you got to answer before that video gets posted in a few weeks. All right, so there's our summer sausage, and as I pull it out, you'll notice that there's white mold growing on it. The white mold is there because it was in close proximity to my salami, which, as you can see, is covered in white mold. That particular mold is called Penicillium nalgiavensis, and it's totally safe, completely edible. And if that's what's growing on your salami or your sausages while they're hanging to dry, you have nothing to worry about. So this is our summer sausage. As I cut into it, I'm getting smells from fermented meats, from heavy smoke. The seasonings are really coming through. The color looks amazing. It's evenly cooked all the way throughout. And as I give it a little slice, I can already notice that the texture is exactly how it should be. There's good fat distribution, and these are all the things that you're looking for in your final product. I know it may seem like a lot of steps, but if you take it one at a time, you'll end up with an amazing, tangy, flavorful, smoky summer sausage. The recipe's in the description box, and while you're there, be sure to check out our brand new Patreon page. I want to send a shout out to our first patron for the Two Guys and a Cooler channel. Thank you very much, Tyler Wood, for the support. We really appreciate it. Anybody else, if you've got a comment, a question, or a concern, leave it in the comment section below. We're here to help. If you got any suggestions on any future projects that you'd like to see, I'd love to hear them. And if you're new to our channel, we'd like to say welcome to the team. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. We'll see you in the next video.